And so, as we're going to kick off with Southside Middle School, and our presenters are each going to be sharing their own screen. So, what you're going to find is they're going to talk, as you can see on the screen, about nighttime, and they are the nights, and so capturing the student perspectives. And what was fun with this particular project is the students were actually in the classrooms, like they were in the classrooms gathering data and observing in classrooms. So I'm excited to introduce Jenny Crady. She's the former principal at Southside Middle School, and Jackie Bolito is still at Southside Middle School. So I'm honored to have them presenting, and I won't take any more time away from their presentation. And I think they're the adults that are presenting today. I don't see any kiddos with us there from Southside.
No, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to just share my screen real quick and then we will get started. I got too many tabs already. Just a second. Everything's showing except the window I need to show. All right. Okay, are you guys able to see what should be a Canva presentation up?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your patience. Okay, we'll get started as Jerry shared in our intro. We don't have students with us today. The students who were kind of our leaders at last year's redesign showcase are now freshmen in high school who hopefully are tearing it up in their respective high schools, taking the lead in work to help redesign those schools. But Jackie and I are here today to sort of share what that last year's experience was for us. So Jackie will kick us off.
Hi there. So I'd like to give a little bit of an introduction. My name is Jacqueline Belito, and I am the East Hall School Counselor at Southside Middle School. I've been here since 2019, and I have the pleasure of working with students who just arrived to this country. And here at Southside, we have a very special program where those students are in what we call a sheltered program with teachers who have an extended amount of experience teaching English as another language. And then we also have a program where those students then also integrate into the inclusion classrooms and still get the support that they need. So I've been here, like I said, since 2019. We have Miss Jenny Crady, who was our principal from 2017 to 2025. And she's moved on now to out of Jacksonville. And she's doing some consulting, which I know she's doing a fabulous job with. And she has more than 25 years in the classroom. So both of us together, as well as with another one of our ELL teachers, were the ones who were piloting this program and helping the changes come about. And then, of course, putting our students in the center to help us make the best out of our decisions. So let's talk. We can talk a little bit about how this whole thing started for us. So as I said, I gave you a little bit of our demographics. We have about 800 to 900 students here in our classroom. We are the most diverse middle school in Jacksonville, with about a third of our students, almost a fourth of our students. Well, I would say more of
about 40% at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our English language learners having come here like last week, as early as last week. We began this program back in 2021 or a little bit before that, just kind of taking into account our demographics and the data and how we wanted to move forward. Very importantly, in attendance, which was one of the things that we struggled with the most. We then became a member of the Network for School Improvements right after COVID. And we got to learn with a lot of the professional development about what is it that we needed to do to help students connect. Because if they didn't connect to school, then they weren't going to be here. And that's just a regular thing. But after COVID, it kind of exacerbated a little bit more because we all kind of disconnected from each other. And then slowly we started with a small group of students and trying to find a way to connect and for them to feel like they could advocate for themselves, especially our English language learners. And we got introduced to the Redesign showcase, and that's where it all really came into being, where we actually had the students helping us guide what we needed to do to make their experience the best possible experience here at Southside.
And so we knew then with the design process work that we wanted to focus on student agency, belonging, and connectedness. And so through the work with the design process, or change ideas, as we also called them, with our work in partnership with City Year, we started looking at how we would go about doing that. So I'll show you on the next couple of slides what our presentation that involved the students, what that actually looked like at Showcase. But going through that design process, imagining how we could go about putting students at the center to promote this agency, belonging, and connectedness that we knew was so, so important for our students. And initially we did struggle a little bit, wanted to be fully transparent with the process and our lessons learned through that, with what metrics we would use to be able to support our success, or allow us to take a step back and see where we needed to make some tweaks in our execution. And so we did focus on, as Jackie said, looking at how it impacted attendance, behavior, course performance, but we also needed some real process measures that would help us just truly understand how our students were feeling, not always the bottom line of how it was impacting grades. Really important, but also those qualitative measures that would allow us to tap into what our students were feeling, which is not always a very clean metric that we're used to. And we knew we wanted to focus on student voice, but just like educators are fantastic for, we say, well, we're professionals in education. We know what students need. And so we just start planning things and saying, this is what's best for students. And it really wasn't until, like Jackie said, when we dove into this design process work, that we were like, wait, this is the main thing. Getting students at the center and their voices, involving them in the work. We can assume as adults all day long about what is best for students, what they enjoy, but until we actually involved them and they visited classrooms and got more involved, that became the main thing. Their voice became the most important. So you'll see on just this slide and the next two, I'll kind of go rather quickly, but this just being the design process. So we went through the systematic approach to the work to redesign and say, how can we take the information we have, the context of where we've been and where we're trying to go, and spend some time, like in step 3, imagining how do we go about doing this, and then creating, which what we did was create our nighttime, as Jerry said in our introduction. As the nights, we started a daily homeroom class that was not a part of the scheduling model and was not a part of the district scheduling model, and pulled out some time from each instructional block to create a daily homeroom class that could focus on building on the social emotional learning and resiliency education work that we had already started post-COVID, but based on our interaction with students, their survey feedback, that was the stuff they were craving. They needed more of that connection. While we know that the reading, writing, arithmetic, and all of the things we do as schools is super, super important, students feeling connected, we needed to be more deliberate about how we would go about providing that time and the resources, and quite honestly, the lessons to allow students to thrive in those environments. So you'll see our design process here. And then on these next 2 slides, really just shows some visual artifacts of each of those steps of our design process. So you'll see some snapshots of survey work. You'll see the developing things that we had done under step 2 in the past to promote connection. You'll see like in the middle of the screen here, our Knight's Oath, the fact that we had embedded calm classroom instruction, a lot of things we had already been doing, not necessarily through redesign work, but just in what we do for continuous improvement every year in schools. Then you'll see some more walkthrough tools and our school improvement planning, so that, we definitely went about doing it in a very strategic way. And then this is when we also, 4, 5, and 6 now is the execution of this nighttime idea. So you'll see under 4, the carving out of that time. This is a chart that showed what each day's theme represented for those lessons that we were teaching. This just gives you some samples. We had some Turn and Talk Tuesdays where we were teaching students common phrases in multiple languages, and even ended up including sign language towards the end. So just to become more inclusive and more connecting for all of our students. And then you'll see a lot of the survey work again, going back this time, both involving adult observers and then moving into the meat of it down here with our student observations. So you'll see that as well. But these just become the artifacts as a part of our design process.
So what we did is we got together a group of students, and we had them, after the adults went to observe the classes, we actually had the students go in to observe the classes and give us some more qualitative feedback, right? So what did they see? What did they hear? What did they feel? What is something they appreciated? Any questions they may have had, what they didn't like that was going on in the classroom during this nighttime, and any suggestions that they had for improvement. And that's pretty much where we got some feedback from that. And then we had our redesign showcase. So we kind of went, forward, and we said, okay, so when we come back, we're really going to be looking at the suggestions for improvement and how we can continue to use their voice to improve the nighttime experience. So
and
this is
real quick, Jackie, just to add to that too, like when I talked about how being in the classrooms, you'll see some samples over here on the right that the students were actually filling in. But it was in that experience of doing that with the kids that we were like, they have a lot more to say about this that was informing our way of work than we even thought that they would. Like when Jackie mentioned asking, what did you like? What did you not like? We had student level feedback that I would take students with me to every classroom to observe everything, instruction, and give us feedback about that, just because the level that they responded was very impressive and very informative to us in our practice. Go ahead, Jackie. I'm sorry.
So no problem. No. So we had a very representative group of students. So we what you would call the leaders in our school. We had students who wouldn't come to your mind as leaders in your school. And we also wanted to include our English language learners that had just moved from the sheltered program into the inclusion program, because they had enough English to be able to participate in those classes, but we wanted their perspective as to how they could, what their experience was. So we can move on.
And then, like Jackie said, then we brought all this to showcase. And while we had already put students in the center with getting this feedback, then of course we were able to bring 2 of our kiddos with us. You'll see in the picture with just the boys on the bottom right, that's Jeremiah on the left and Tariq on the right. And so while we were only able to bring 2 students with us, that showcase and being able to participate in that really just was one of the highlights of my career, to be honest. It was an opportunity for now us to put student voice on full display. And while the boys were nervous at first, they literally listened to the 3 adults that you'll see, myself, Jackie, and Mr. Wise, who joined us, like kind of with one of the very first early morning presentations. And then they literally were like, okay, we got this. We don't need you anymore. You could be here if they ask questions that we aren't quite sure about, but let us do this. And so literally it became an opportunity for us to see this student voice on showcase and full display, and it was quite powerful and impressive. And there were lessons learned all the way around for us as the adult professional educators with years of experience, that, you know, there is no, as we tell our kids, arriving, because we learned more from our students and the students that participated across the country in that showcase than we could have ever taught. And so that was amazing for us. And also participating in showcase provided us with opportunities to launch lessons for these two boys, particularly that represented our group, for life. Now, like I said, they're off in their respective high schools in leadership roles and taking that experience, you know, with them as they go to do that. So just wanted to share, because that was something that we were so proud of. The boys literally doing the work. You can see in the pictures, they were presenting and sharing what we were doing with nighttime, their views of how it was working, what challenges there were. It was very honest work in what we saw. We knew coming up the following year, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute as we wrap up, that there were going to be some additional changes moving into the next school year that might impact our ability to sustain this work. So we can redesign it for a year, but then what? We're always in this cycle of continuous improvement. So just wanted to have the little slideshow of not just the showcase, but then jam packing in that weekend, the opportunity for the boys to experience DC. For one, it was his first time on a plane. For both, it was their first time away from their families. So just the life experience that also came from that continue to circle back for our team of adults to, like, this is our why. This is why we do this work. This is why it is so important to keep students at the center. And they have a lot to say, and we need to have 2 ears and 1 mouth and do more listening than we do talking. And so we come to the end of the year. We again circle back to using those process measures, building on the process measures, but now looking at some more concrete outcomes, with surveying our students about how did the nighttime experience impact that agency, belonging, and connectedness, and getting data that we could obviously move from qualitative to quantitative to see, looking at students to see, did we have improvements in those areas of attendance, like Jackie said, where we wanted to set out to improve. And then, like I mentioned, change. So there was a lot of change that then was coming. My decision to transition, to move closer to my family and move on to something different, was a big change. And it wasn't just me. So it was, prior to that, in school leadership or administration, it was myself and 2 APs, and both the APs have also transitioned. So now Southside is under brand new leadership, brand new principal, 1 assistant principal position. And so new there. And then also other change in that our city year grant years for the network of school improvement, which kind of was the connective tissue, if you will, to us and JHU and Everyone Graduates Center. That grant was expiring. So again, how would this work be as deliberate as it had been? And then a change in school scheduling format that we were not sure was going to leave time for a nighttime. As much as the students and teachers responded positively that they wanted it, we were moving to a 7-period day, shortening the instructional periods, and wondering how can we continue to now invest in nighttime as a redesign idea that worked.
So we jumped all those hurdles. We did. And
thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Jen. As we're finishing up, we've got like 1 minute left.
Okay, so we did jump those hurdles, and we have been able to survey the students who have given us ideas now to include in our nighttime lessons, and we're really seeing more involvement in students. Our attendance rate has improved slightly, but it has improved, and we're currently doing a nighttime attendance challenge that we started in December. And the students are very excited about that. So the next step is involving students in the actual planning and possibly even facilitating of our nighttime lessons. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I just have one quick question. I know we have to get on to the next one, but so it's this idea of having the students be the observers of the very class they're taking and giving the feedback is very powerful. And you said you even scale it, use it other places too. Um, could you just give like one or two examples of sort of the insights you got that you were even surprised at like how deep they were from the kids?
Sure. Some that come to mind for me, to be honest, were really honest discussions about, I mean, just being completely transparent, where students would say, that classroom environment is not a way I could start every school day. Where the amount of perceived chaos or lack of control was happening, where students would notice that there were certain students who were dominating the conversation instead of it being where all 25 to 30 voices were heard. We had students who would notice, well, this teacher uses because all the lessons provided during nighttime were fully scripted lessons given to teachers, and you would see execution look a little different. Some would be fully using the notes for presenters so that if they had, they would see, in order to involve more, instead of asking for individuals to call out, because sometimes that could impact their level of comfort and sharing. It was designed to be like a turn and talk, so it was just going to be two students sharing with each other. You would see the difference in execution of the lessons, and that's what students would notice. Well, in my room, we might have kids that aren't as comfortable talking, but I'm just sharing with one person first, and then I am given the opportunity to share aloud if I want to, versus the cold calling on people, which was impacting their connection if they were feeling off put.
Right. Thanks.
Absolutely.
And we also got insight from the English language learners. The English language learners, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, they do a lot of nodding to let you know, to make it seem like they understand, but it's not necessarily true. So they were able to let us know, like, what are some of the things that we can do. So actually this year, I've implemented in the lessons more like sentence starters and things like that, a little bit more scaffolding, so that we can actually meet their needs a little bit more, so that they can also feel comfortable in participating. Because that was one thing that would happen when you would see the observation. There would be those kids who would be participating, and there would be others that wouldn't. So having conversation with them as to why they weren't participating, even though I may have known them a little bit more and knew that they had stuff to share, was really insightful.
Before we move on, Bob, we have a couple of questions in the chat. One was about the program being school-wide, and that has also been responded, I think, in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
But Amy has asked, first, how did you identify the places where it made sense to elevate youth input? And second, was there additional support or training provided to the teachers and staff? And then another participant has asked, how comfortable were the teachers to be open to student observation feedback?
So I can let you know that one of the things that we didn't get to mention is that our first round of adult observations was really about fidelity and quirks, right? Things that may not be going well for the teacher to be able to facilitate the lessons as best possible. So wherever we did notice those things, the same adults that went to observe or other adults would go and help them out in, for example, being able to see the facilitation notes to refer to during the lessons, or any other things that may have been impeding them from actually being able to facilitate with fidelity. So that we did do in the very beginning.
And then I was going to, as far as, I think because of the way that working the process, the design process itself, and following sequential steps. And our focus, a real learning opportunity for us was when we, like I mentioned, that challenge we had with aligning the metrics, because we were just trying to say, we want to improve agency belonging and connectedness. And then we're looking at attendance, behavior, and course performance data. And we're like, while we want these to obviously have a natural correlation in their improvement, we have to have process measures in place. And so we became really strategic as a team for where to start, when to put in students. We were really transparent with our faculty. Like this, we have regular early release, at least last year, there were early release sessions, which were faculty meetings, and being able to share like a forecast of what's coming. We put out schedules, but we didn't necessarily tell teachers when they were being observed. We just shared like this week, every classroom will be observed, because the way that we did the schedule, so we had the student teams mixed of the grade levels with an adult going in initially to observe. So there was also, from a buy-in with faculty, which is super important. It was the transparency of knowing when these things were happening, but also that it was not designed to be a snapshot of just 3 to 4 rooms. It was all 33 homerooms that got observed, and the feedback was captured and shared. So the whole process with faculty was really transparent, so that, again, it would also improve buy-in from them, but knowing none of this was supposed to be behind closed doors kind of conversations with kids. It was just a fully transparent process with faculty.
And it was shared, it's to improve the nighttime experience for everyone that's involved in it. And this year we've moved on to getting feedback from teachers also, and seeing if we can have additional teachers help out with the nighttime lessons and what we're going to be sharing. So it was to improve something that we had started new.